Spring is just around the corner with flowers already blooming, but people of Korea are not all smiles about it, as it has now become a common sense that with the warmth comes the fine dust. To tell us more on the worsening fine dust pollution in Korea and possible solutions, Professor Dong Jong-in from the Department of Environmental Engineering at University of Seoul now joins us in the studio. Thank you for coming in today.
Hi.
According to recent reports, Korea suffered the highest level of fine dust among OECD member nations. But the Korean government soon refuted those reports, saying that Korea showed 74th highest concentration of fine dust out of 184 countries in 2017. How do you assess the fine dust levels in Korea?
Yeah, it's too bad to have such kind of high level of particulate matter concentration in South Korea. We introduced our fine particulate matter air standard in 2015. After that time, we have experienced the most bad season here. So maybe in the first week of this March, we have experienced the highest level of PM. I mean the PM 2.5, meaning particulate matter less than the 2.5 micrometers. So we experienced the highest level of PM pollution, and the longest period of that kind of PM. So it's I think it's a kind of very serious experience in South Korea. Yeah.
So the fine dust levels here are quite severe. Now, to people of Korea, spring is no longer a season to go out, enjoy the breeze, enjoy the cherry blossoms, but instead it has become a season to avoid outdoor activities as much as possible. How bad do you forecast the fine dust to be this spring?
It's very hard to forecast accurately, but maybe I personally, it will last until May, because we experienced those kind of high level of PM pollution until May last year, and this year we are having some bad climate conditions because the temperature is a little high, and the air is very stable in this season, unfortunately. So maybe that is from the climate change these days. So maybe until maybe late spring or early summer, I think we'll have such kind of conditions.
I see. Now, China is often named as the biggest culprit for Korea's suffocating fine dust pollution, but China argues otherwise. China has recently stated that the main reason behind South Korea's fine dust is Korea's heating system. How much fine dust pollution can a heating system generate?
I don't agree about that, because we are using natural gas as a heating fuel around the country. But China is using coal for their heating and the cooking fuel. Maybe their fuel is a problem for just kind of heating system. But from late 90s or early 2000, we started to use natural gas as a heating source. So there's no problem anymore.
So China is making false claims on that. Now, what would you say then are the biggest origins of fine dust particles here in Korea?
Yeah, we have different emission sources. For stationary sources, we have some large-scale coal-fired power plants, and some motor vehicles. I mean, some diesel cars in the large cities. So maybe those kind of large-scale power plants, industrial facilities, or some motor vehicles, in the city are major sources. But for fine particulates, I mean the PM 2.5, we have another unknown area sources, like some restaurant, we have many barbecue restaurants in Korea, right? So if you cook some meat or some fish, maybe it produce some vapors. It will make some particular also. Also some maybe it's printing shops also emitting some solvents from that. So we have very different kinds of small scale sources also. So we should be careful, to keep those kind of sources, clean.
So it's a combination of multiple sources out there.
Right.
Now, China's foreign ministry, and I must say, not the environment ministry, is now at the forefront, tossing back the fine dust blame to South Korea. So, and to this, some argue that we should take this issue to the global stage. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's too bad to hear such kind of comments from the foreign ministers to people. But I think it's also good news to hear that, because it's just a starting point of our discussion. In the past, they ignored all the these kind of situations, but right now they are on stage. So maybe we can start our discussion on that. So we should have a different level of conversation on government base and the local government base, or expert base, or some NGO or media base also. So we should have some conversation of different levels of talk together, and maybe in the future we can combine. Maybe we can make some convention from that, I think.
So different levels of talks are necessary between Beijing and Seoul, perhaps the working level talks, and then work the way up to higher level talks. Now, former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is to head a new anti-pollution government organization. Do you think Ban would be of much help to solve this fine dust problem diplomatically?
Yeah, we should think about two track of approaches. First one will be some government approach, like Mr. Pan's effort to solve these kind of problems. But another approach should be made from the citizens' public base, because if you control some motor vehicle emissions, maybe most of the public should join those kind of campaign. So we should have some agreement from the people, right? Normal people. So maybe former UN Secretary Ban Ki-moon will help to solve such kind of official effort. But there should some another effort from public side also.
Now, so the public opinion, the general consensus is also important. Right. Many experts are now turning to past cross-border air pollution disputes to get some answers. Could you give us some examples of what kind of international disputes there were in the past in terms of air pollution and how they solved the problem?
Yeah, in the past we had many experience of such kind of problems around the world. In the United States, they had some big dispute between Canada and the U.S. in the area of Great Lakes, because they are having a lot of coal sources in that area. So the U.S. part built many coal power plants around there, but some acidic pollutants crossed the border and ruined some beautiful lakes in Canada. So the minister or even some prime minister argued about those kind of problems maybe more than 10 years. So eventually the U.S. government made some decision to cut 50% of acidic air pollutants from those kind of coal power plants. And another case is in the Europe, because many acidic air pollutants were sent from the mainland of European countries like Germany and UK, and maybe many Scandinavian countries suffered some acid rain problems from those plant pollutants. So in 1972, they established some UN convention on that, and then they agreed some resolutions. So they solved those kind of problems step by step. So right now the situation is quite better than before, and they are also making another cooperation in terms of climate change or hot airs.
So I guess we could learn some lessons from those past cases.
Right.
Now, the Korean government has laid out a few countermeasures, namely LPG vehicles, air purifiers at schools, and designation of the fine dust pollution as a social disaster. But many remain skeptical about how effective those countermeasures would be. Your thoughts?
Yeah, we should, make it clean. The new emission sources like new motor vehicles, like some, electric cars or hydrogen cars. But we are now have a lot of in-use cars, so we should focus on the some in-use cars, and then existing facilities also. So maybe if you allow new LPG vehicles, it will help reduce from emissions of new cars. But more importantly, we should control in-use cars also. So maybe if you change the diesel engines to LPG engines for the in-use cars, it will be effective also. Also, another thing is some air purifier in the schools, right? It's good because we should protect our children, right? So, but it's not ultimate measures to reduce those kind of pollutions. But temporarily, it will be necessary, I think. Yeah.
So it would be effective to a certain extent.
Right.
Now, Korean Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon embarked on his trip to Mongolia and China, and sometime tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, he's scheduled to meet with Chinese Premier Li Keqiang. What kind of talks do you think they will share in tackling fine dust, and how do you think Seoul and Beijing should cooperate from this point on?
Yeah, I personally want to ask them to persuade them, continuously and very effectively. In the past, most Korean government officials, some hesitated, to say such kind of, situations. But we have, met very serious situation in this year, right? In January, especially in the early March. So I think it's time to, talk to them to, take some actions for nearby countries' people. China has improved the air quality very effectively, especially in the city area. But internationally, I think it's a long way to go. So they should reduce also total emissions around the China area. So that will be helping their neighboring countries like Korea. But right now, they don't think about those kind of situations. So maybe I hope a high level, government people should talk, very strongly to reduce some air pollutants to help other countries, neighboring countries' situations. So also other government officials like some ministers or some other low level or some local government people should also try to continue their conversations. Also, we should, like me, maybe should try more to persuade them. And some also we should continue to our conversation or some special research results also. also some people like you in media people should continue, those kind of situations, because maybe people is very effective because they can give some pressure to government also, right? Yeah.
All right, I'm afraid that is all the time we have for you. Thank you, Professor Dong, for coming in and sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you.